Welcome to my film review of Annabelle Comes Home. Or is it Annabella Comes Home? So this is a horror movie. It's the latest in a franchise. It's the Conjuring universe, a little bit like the Marvel universe, how a lot of the films are all linked. But this is horror rather than super comic book superhero movies. And this is the third in the specific Annabella element of the universe, and unfortunately it's disappointing. Yeah, as you may well know, horror movies are my favourite genre, and therefore I was hugely looking forward to this coming out, but unfortunately it was hugely disappointing based on how much I was looking forward to it. It really was. So to give you an idea, I recently watched the first and second Annabelles, obviously chronologically. One came out in 2014, Annabella. Then Annabella Creation came out in 2017, which was actually a prequel to the original Annabella. So that then made me want to go and watch another Annabella again, because to watch them in chronological order is quite cool as well and satisfying. And I actually watched the second Annabella Creation last night, literally last night, in preparation for seeing Annabella at the cinema today. And honestly, there was moments last night when I was watching Annabella Creation where it was like, oh, almost like, you know, hide behind your arms kind of stuff at times. Watched it obviously at home, so pitch black, you know, late at night sort of thing, perfect settings for a horror movie. And I would have probably give that movie 8.6, 8.7, you know. It was really good, really good. Some majorly creepy parts at times, and it was kind of right throughout. It was nearly a 2-hour movie, pretty much the same length of runtime as Annabella Comes Home, and it felt like it was kind of non-stop tension and thrills and such like, which is brilliant, which is what you want in a horror movie. So that's your benchmark, okay? And then Annabella Comes Home today, in comparison, was just like a huge disappointment, really. So if you've recently seen Annabella Creation, so you know what you thought of that movie, this I would give a 7 out of 10. Annabella Creation I would give a 8.7 out of 10. Really good, really good. This was just disappointing. Now the fact that it's getting a 7 out of 10 is actually quite generous, and that's purely down to the fact that I love horror. So even a meh, not that good horror, I still enjoy. But I wouldn't be surprised, you know, a non-horror lover's probably really going to hate on this movie and just think, what a load of pants, especially because it wasn't the traditional 90 minutes. If it was 90 minutes and a bit disappointing, you feel a little bit less aggrieved because it was a short movie. But this was an hour and 45, so it's quite long. And to be honest, it didn't need to be that long. It was taking a little bit of liberty being so long with so little scary stuff happening. Annabella Creation was about the same length, quite long, but constant scary stuff going on. You're like, wow, this is kind of non-stop. So yeah, really disappointing in comparison. It didn't feel like, so Annabella Comes Home, it starts off great, kind of picks up where it's linking all the stories together. Fantastic, loved it straight away, I'm gripped. And the first hour kind of flew by. I was enjoying it, you know. I'm invested in the story of the universe, so therefore I was enjoying it from a story point of view, even though there wasn't much terrifyingly scary stuff going on. But at the end of the day, I've got to judge this based on the fact that it's a horror and you want to be scared, you want to be petrified. And I'm afraid there wasn't really any of it. Not even at the end, you know. Most horrors build up to the end, and the end, even if it's only for a brief moment, it'll really scare you. I'm afraid even at the end, it disappointed. You know, didn't ever really do much. But again, I did still kind of enjoy it. That's the crazy thing. It just wasn't terrifying. So, you know, bear that in mind when you go in to watch this film. A little gripe that I would have is how dark the movie was. Obviously, when it's the initial part, the storyline, it's not dark, but when it's trying to put you into the scary scenes, it's relying very much on black cast iron darkness, and as a result, it's difficult to actually see what's going on the screen. So when there is supposed to be something scary on the screen, you can barely make it out because everything's so dark. It just all kind of like blends into one, which is kind of crazy. So, and then there's the fact that the lights in the cinema were too bright. So if you've got the lights that stay on in the cinema, just the really short little not particularly bright ones at the top, well, they were too bright. So I was originally thinking about going and sitting at the very front, which maybe I should have done sooner, because the brightness of the lights from the ceiling was actually too much, and it was kind of essentially putting you off from the movie. So yeah, disappointing. So the other thing that I would have to say about this is, let's have a look. There's nothing at the end either. So on the previous one, Annabelle Creation, right at the very end, just like with the Marvel Universe, right at the very, very end, you have a little sequence as to what's coming next in the universe. It did that in Annabelle Creation. During the movie, you had a little hint of a link to the Nun, which I hadn't noticed the first time round, which was cool. And then right at the very, very, very end, right after all the end credits, you see another little link to the Nun movie, which is fantastic. So I hung around till the very, very, very end for this movie, and I'm afraid there's nothing. So as soon as the credits end, as soon as the movie ends, feel free to leave. There's nothing else, unfortunately, to give you a taster of. So it's definitely a good thing if you've watched the first two, but it's not entirely crucial. But then if you haven't watched the first two, I think you'll think this movie really is quite lame. Or then again, maybe it's better to watch this movie first, because then you'd start off not so scary and get scarier as you go back and watch the old one. So yeah, it doesn't really matter if you haven't seen the first two, but obviously you'll understand a lot more what's going on if you haven't. It's probably best that you have seen the first two. So I still enjoyed this, even though it was a disappointment. It was slow to get going. Like I say, the first hour, not really much was going down in terms of scariness, but again, I was still enjoying it. And in terms of how the crowd reacted, it was a reasonably full cinema house. Not reasonably full, but there's plenty of people in there, and a lot of like youngsters, probably maybe 14, 15-year-olds, getting into a 15. I remember being that age, and going to watch these kind of movies. And I think for them, they maybe enjoyed it. I mean, there was a lot of giggling going on after the supposed scary bits, which, when you're that age, you normally giggle after you've been scared to try and hide the fact that you've been scared, or laugh about the fact that you've just been scared, which is awesome. That's why we go and watch these movies. So there was quite a lot of that going on. There was quite a lot of kids, youngsters in the audience, giggling quite regularly. But I think in fairness, a lot of those scares were jump scares, quiet bang. The first few certainly were, and then I think there was a few freaky kind of scares towards the end that got people giggling again, but not what you expect from, especially after watching Creation. Creation was at times absolutely terrifying, and I was expecting the same from this, and it just wasn't, unfortunately. So bear in mind that the lights in the cinema might actually be too bright for the screen. So what I actually did was, for the last 20 minutes, expecting the last 20 minutes to be amazing, which they weren't really, I went and sat on the very, very, very front row, so that all of the lights were completely behind me, and it just helped me be able to see the screen a little bit better. So I wouldn't put you off doing that, I wouldn't put you off sitting on the very front row for this movie. I was thinking, like I say, about sitting very close, and I think it's definitely the right thing to do. Although it's not like the Curse of La Llorona, where there's a lot of in-your-face, freaky stuff where it's awesome to be front and close to the screen. There wasn't really any of that with this. So I thought sitting near the front would be beneficial for the in-your-face scary stuff. but there wasn't really a great deal. And the reason why you'd want to sit at the front for this is so that for the second half of the film, when it's really dark, you can actually see more of the screen, what's going on, because there isn't light in the cinema house, you know, making it impossible to really see the screen. So there's a top tip for you for getting the best out of this. And yeah, so 7 out of 10. A bit of an FYI, the Warrens are real people. I don't think I knew that. So that's interesting. The Warrens are real people, and there's been 17 Amityville horror movies made off the back of the real life people, and 7 Conjuring films. So there you go, 24 movies as a result of these real life people. So that's pretty cool. So I imagine there might be some interesting books and, you know, novels and papers and horror stories to probably read about that are actually genuinely. So yeah, that's the end of the review, I'm afraid. A little bit of a downhearted one, I'm afraid. A little bit disappointed. Yeah, I am. But on the plus side, the 20-year anniversary of The Matrix is about to start in 10 minutes, and it's a 4K restoration, so I'm going to go and watch that now and cheer myself up with an old classic that I haven't watched for a few years, and I'm going to get to see it on the big screen again. So Annabelle Comes Home. It's okay for a date night. Yeah, go for a date on a weekend with your partner. Definitely, that's okay. But just don't think you're going to go and spend 20 quid between the two of you and be blown away. It's probably one where you want to wait till Tuesday, Wednesday, go on the buy one, get one free, so that you don't feel shortchanged, you know? There's not a great deal out in terms of scary stuff. There never is. Oh, the trailers. Oh, yes, top tip. Don't miss the trailers for this movie. There was some the trailers were the best thing about this movie. I actually caught all the trailers for once. I'm not going to tell you what they were, because you get the excitement of getting to watch them yourself, but make sure you don't miss the trailers for this movie, because the trailers are phenomenal. And there's one new movie coming out. Don't know when, but it's a teaser trailer. I didn't know anything about it, but if you're a movie lover, this is possibly going to be your favourite director, and he's made another movie. So exciting times. Yes. And in terms of horrors, there's a couple of decent horrors advertised as well. So yeah, catch the trailers, whatever you do. They were pretty awesome. So yeah, I hope you found this review useful. It's not a 10 out of 10 worth paying top bucks for. Try and see it on the cheap if you can, but if you want a date weekend movie, then Friday, Saturday, that's fine. But see it on the cheap if you can, because this is a tadger disappointing. So thanks for listening, and we will see you on the next review. Goodbye.